Welcome
to the joy of coding.
Hello, and welcome to episode 100 and... I don't remember. Hold up. 159 of the joy of coding. My name's Mike Conley. So glad to have you here. It's so good to see you. Welcome. Going to be hacking on some Firefox stuff today. It's going to be great. And yeah, let's get down to business. Why delay? Why delay? So here's my screen. Here, what we're looking at right now is the agenda. So today is November 28th, 2018. Reminder, no plan survives breakfast. Things that we're about to do, completely unplanned. Who knows how they're going to turn out? I don't have like a pre-scripted set of solutions to any of the bugs I'm going to work on. I'm really just rolling off the cuff. So things might go horribly wrong. I might get stuck. I might get things wrong. Who knows? Or we might fix bugs. Not sure. But that's all according to plan, because there is no plan. That's the plan. So the other thing I want to point out is that the episode guide, or the agenda that we're looking at, is something that you have access to. If you're watching this on YouTube, it's in the video description. There's a link there. If you're watching this on AirMozilla, there is a handout section that's like over here somewhere, I think. And if you're watching this on Twitch, and I'm about to drop the link into the Twitch chat, there's the agenda. Bam! And in each of those places, there's also a link to a form to let you rate the episode and let me know what you thought. I'll put that in the Twitch chat too. If I can learn to spell, there you go. So yeah, there's that, and the other thing I wanted to mention is that there's an episode guide. Hooray! There's an episode guide to the joy of coding. It's completely viewer-driven. This is something that only like a couple of, I'd say about a year ago, not that long ago, I think we put this together. And, viewers just like you contributed all these guides to the various episodes. Some of them are pretty sparse. Like if you go to one of the earlier ones, they'll just have the link to the video and the agenda. But some of the later ones are great because they'll have like in-depth, or at least more in-depth coverage of the topics and the bugs, and with links to handy things. And sorts of, the work that was done during the episode. So if that's a thing that you feel like contributing to, because maybe you've got your own notes, or maybe you have some addenda, or maybe you've got some corrections to make, or you want to include more links, references, that sort of thing, send me a pull request. I am very liberal about accepting pull requests to this repository. If you're not sure what I mean by pull request, go back to the agenda, because there's a pull requests guide, links to the repo, a contributing guide, and just a general guide for creating pull requests that one of the most prolific contributors to the episode guide, Smurf D, used and recommends. So there you go. Now, before we continue, I want to do a quick self-check, make sure everything is working. I'm recording, you can hear me. Okay, great. Let's keep going. What do I want to do today? Well, there are two things, actually. One is I accidentally caused a regression yesterday by landing a particular patch, and I want to undo that regression. Hold on just a sec. Okay, yeah, there's a regression, and it has to do with the menu bar right here. Bug 1510631. I don't think this is necessary to put some notes together for this one, because it's pretty straightforward, but I am going to put a link to it in the agenda. So let me just copy that, go over here, whoopsie daisy, and I'll copy the link as well. There you go. So that's in the agenda now. And the idea is that, there's a video actually demonstrating the issue in here, right here. So in this video, one of our most valued nightly testers, Alice0775 White, demonstrates the issue. So here's what's going on. Alice opens up version 64 of Firefox. That's what's on beta right now. So here comes beta. Beta loads up, and then Alice enters customize mode and puts some items. Well, first of all, enables the menu bar, and then puts some items right next to the menu bar, like that. So the history and the bookmarks menu, right next to the menu bar. Okay, great. And then exits Firefox, and then opens up Nightly using the same profile, making it very clear on Nightly. Now take a look at what's going on here. Those things that got put into the menu bar are now over on the right side, and they can't be moved back to the left. So that's unfortunate. Or at least I don't think they could be moved back to the left. Let's actually test that. Unfortunately, that means me having to boot up my VM, my slow operating VM. Slow operator. But I'll do it. I'll do it for you. I'll do it for you, Internet. Someone commented in YouTube. They said, you must have the patience of a saint to deal with a VM like that. Well, the good news is that the VM doesn't normally behave this slowly. I suspect that so the broadcasting software I'm using is called OBS, and it is fighting for a lot of my CPU, a lot of the cycles on this machine, and it's only running when I'm streaming, and whenever I'm not streaming, my machine actually behaves really, really nicely. The VMs also behave very, very nicely. Unfortunately, OBS does take a lot of my CPU, and so that's why whenever I'm on camera, conveniently enough, things are very slow. So that's too bad. So this is something I'm hoping we can get a patch. I've actually written a patch to fix this. I just want to double check to make sure that I understand the entire scope of the bug before I push up the patch. So I'm going to wait for this VM to boot. That's one thing I wanted to work on today. The other thing I wanted to work on was a bug we worked on, I think 2 or 3 episodes ago. I don't remember. But it has to do with responsive design mode not being flexible enough to deal with process flipping. And process flipping is what happens whenever we move between different URL types, like file system URLs, like file : / file scheme URLs, local file URLs, and web content URLs, like Mozilla.org. And then we've added a new special kind of URL in Nightly. That's for About New tab. About Welcome, About New tab, and About Home. About Welcome, About New tab, and About Home all load in a special privileged content process. So that means if you were to activate responsive design mode in privileged in one of those tabs, and then try and browse that tab somewhere else, responsive design mode will break. So that's something I want to sort out today, or at least get a plan put together. We started to get a plan put together last time we were doing this, but then it fell by the wayside, to quote a movie that I saw recently. So hang on. Here's what I want to do. Before I continue, I want to go back one patch. So the patch that I think fixes the issue is on the tip of this repository, and I want to go back one, and I want to actually try and get back into the current state on Windows. Let me shrink the window down a little bit so you can see the whole thing. So we're going to go back one patch. I'm going to build it, and then I'm going to test to see whether or not it's possible to put items to the left of the spacer. Barrett suggests maybe I need another computer for encoding. Maybe. I'm not entirely certain how to hook that up. I've never tried it. Maybe over the holidays I'll think about it. I'll think about a way of doing that. Because it does seem like if I could take some load off of this computer, that would probably make the stream more enjoyable. It would probably make my life more enjoyable. And you get to see more of me doing stuff and less of me waiting for stuff. So yeah, if anyone's got recommendations on how one can use a separate computer to capture and encode on, because I'm not entirely certain if it's the encoding process that's being slow or if it's the capturing process. It's just OBS is taking a lot of my CPU, and it's not clear to me like why. I could probably profile it if I tried hard enough. But even then, I'm not sure I'd be able to. Barrett says, talk to him after the stream. Great. he might have some suggestions. Okay, so here is an instance of Firefox demonstrating the issue. I want to see if it's possible for me to put... No, it isn't. Okay, good. So my patch makes this strictly better by making it possible to put items both to the left and to the right of the spacer in the title bar, or next to the menu bar. So I think that should work. I'm going to... I sent the patch, so I used SCP to send the patch from my VM back up to my host machine here. Now I'm going to import it, because I didn't give my VM like all of the credentials to push to Fabricator and all that business. So instead I just SCP it up to my my host machine here, and I'll import it, and we'll take a look. Take a look how it works. I'll show you the patch. Let me pump up the font so you can kind of see what I'm doing, because I always forget that everything's really small. Meanwhile, whenever the VM finishes shutting down, that'll probably make everything a lot better. Oh yeah, it's done. So I'm going to shut down VMware now, and slowly my machine will reclaim the resources that had been stolen from it. Okay, so we've got the fix here. Let's update to the tip and then take a look. I guess I was already updated. Okay, so what the patch is it's the spacer that's now in the menu bar. Instead of making us skip it in the toolbar set, which I think causes our customizable UI code to ignore it completely, I give it an ID, but I also say that it's not removable. That means you can't actually pull it out, but you can put something on either side of it. It becomes something that is tracked by our customizable toolbar code. So I'm going to see if Gijs likes this. I'm going to submit this patch, and we'll see how it goes, and then we will switch back to... Oh, Tom Prince says, you could probably use HG to push directly between a repo on your VM and on your host. That is true. I've done that before. The problem is that I have to then... You have to configure... What was the problem? I had to add something to my host machine's HGRC in order for the remote commands to work, something like that. And then that broke things on my host machine whenever I tried to use my host machine's Mercurial normally. I never really like... It's true. There's probably... I mean, this is kind of like what distributed version control is supposed to allow me to do, is to like push a thing from here to here and then push a thing from here to there. But I couldn't get it to work properly, and I didn't spend enough time to do it. But I think it had something to do, while we're waiting for this to push up, something to do with like Mercurial HGRC remote command. Is that it? HG remote command. Right, so that whenever I attempted to push from my virtual machine to this machine, I guess HG wasn't... Maybe I just need to make sure that HG is on my path. Except that it should be. HG should definitely be on my path. Because I can use it everywhere. So that means it's on my path, right? Right? It's everywhere. I don't know. Maybe one of these days I'll figure it out. But in the meantime, let's take a look and make sure that this revision looks okay up on Fabricator, and we'll see what Gijs thinks. I'm gonna add an additional comment here. So this isn't perfect, but it might be the best we can do. The spacer now has an ID, so items can exist on either side of it. So customizable UI items can exist on either side of it. For some reason, toolbar spring and toolbar spacer weren't Hang on. Can exist on either side of it. Unfortunately, I think this means that users who had customized items so that they exist on so that they are placed directly to the right of the menu bar are going to find. Oh, you know what? I could probably. To the right, they're going to find. The items to the right of the spacer now instead of to the left of it based on how CUI inserts things. Do you think it's worth me writing a migrate UI function for this? Heis. So a migrate UI function. Oh, but the path might be set by a shell config that doesn't run when starting a command via SSH. Good call. Good call, Tom Prince. Not a migrate UI function, a migrate UI. Okay, so that's, I've got something up there. Let's see what Heist thinks. In the meantime, let's go back to this responsive design mode business. So process flipping is something that responsive design mode is not set up to handle. And well, let's take a look and see what it does right now. I think we had looked at this before, but let's take a look. It's in a book, Reading Rainbow. Let's close all these other files that we don't need. Okay. We'll create a little more space here. Sublime. Wake up, Sublime. Okay. Create a little more space. So we're going to take a look inside. I think it was swap. So if you're curious about what the swap business is all about, you should watch an earlier episode. What was it? The episode where I talked about how responsive design mode works. I think that may have been 156. No. 157. Yeah, go check out episode 157 if you're curious about what swap.js does. Because how responsive design mode works is pretty crazy. It's pretty, I mean, they essentially interpose something to act like a browser in between the actual browser and the consumers, like the thing that usually manages browsers. So they like inject a thing. And they tunnel commands through it. It's really something. It's quite extraordinary. So this first block is I think where we're falling over, because yeah, this is going to do the work of testing to see whether or not the page that we're about to navigate to. Basically, it's testing to see whether or not the current page is a web URI, like a web content process URI. And if it isn't, it waits until we become one before continuing. And so that's great if you only have one content process type. But now that we have like the privileged content process, and we also have like the file URI or the file local file process type, and we're going to have lots and lots and lots of different content process types, this is very brittle and this will not work. So we have to find a way to make responsive design mode more resilient and actually deal with process flipping. And one of the challenges with that is because of how it's injecting something, the thing that it's injecting in between the browser and the consumer of the browser is the thing that now has to support being process flipped. And unfortunately, the way that works is it's pretty crazy. Oh, I just had an idea. I just had an idea. Maybe I should write this down. It's a bit of a crazy idea. And I don't know if it'll work, but I just had an idea. Okay. So let me take some notes here and get my idea written down. So here are my previous notes. So this is essentially what I want to do. The second checkbox here. Can we have update browser remoteness? This is the function in the tab browser, like browser manager code, that does the work of actually flipping processes. So can we have the process flipping code ask the browser element for the right browser to flip remoteness for? Because in the responsive design mode case, the right browser isn't itself. It's actually the one that it's wrapping. That's the one that we want to flip the remoteness for. And what would be really nice is if the update browser remoteness code didn't have to special case responsive design mode, if it just kind of worked. I think that I would prefer that, because update browser remoteness, if we take a look at the function, is already quite complicated. And adding, here, let me pull that up. Adding even further like conditions in here is not something I'm super jazzed about. It's already doing so much, because the process of tearing down a tab and bringing one back up is complicated. But here's my idea. One of the things that update browser remoteness does, arguably the most important thing, is that it removes the browser from the DOM, sets some attributes, and reinserts it all in the same tick of the event loop. And we do that because you can't update the attributes live while the browser is in the DOM and have, specifically for the multi-process stuff, the content process stuff, you can't have that take place live while the item is still in the DOM. The choosing which process a thing goes to is actually decided, or the work is actually kicked off when the browser is put into the DOM, added to the tree. So if you want to change what process a thing is in, you actually have to remove the browser, change the attributes to give it hints on where it needs to go, and then put it back in the DOM to trigger all that initialization stuff again. So that's complicated. But the way that it's doing the removal is by calling destroy on the browser, and how's it doing it? Remote type. And then it removes it from the DOM, it sets attributes, and then not long later, it reappends it to the DOM. So remind me again what browser.remove returns, or element.remove. I think it's supposed to return itself, the thing that was removed. And we could maybe take advantage of that. Not remove. Oh man, come on. Element.remove. Not child node.remove. What's the return value? I thought maybe there was a return value. That would have been nice. Let me just double check. Let's do a test on this page. This thing, let's remove. Let x equal that dot remove. X is undefined. Shoot. So it doesn't actually return a value. So potentially we could add a new function, because a browser is an XBL binding. It's a browser node, And instead of calling remove on it directly, we could call like, oh man, browser parent node. How do we want to do this? Because in the RDM case, the parent node is going to be like the responsive design mode view. So here's my question, or here's my idea. Can we add a new function to the browser binding called like remove self? Remove and return self. And in the case of the actual browser binding, simply have it call .remove and then return itself. In the RDM wrapper thing case, have remove and return self return the actual inner browser. Now, that's a little tricky because it also asks for the parent node, browser parent node. And the reason for that is just so it can reappend itself. Now, in here, parent node, does it override parent node? Tunnel.js. I don't think it does. Like if I were to enter, let's enter responsive design mode in here. Okay. And now if I ask the browser, well, let me open up the console. So see, I'm actually, there's a wrapper now around the browser. So technically the selected browser also includes this stuff around it, but the selected browser that I'm referring to now is actually, it is this thing, but things that I call on it, like get me the current URI, it's tunneling to the inner one. This is a little sub-browser inside of it. And so what I want to know is, what's your parent node selected browser? Browser stack. And I wonder if, yeah, it's tunneling parent node as well. Parent node, parent node, parent node. Yeah, it is. So calling gbrowser selected browser now here's the other thing. If I ask the selected browser and I set the style dot margin 15px, yeah, it's the outer one. So I am kind of speaking to the outer one as well. It's only certain attributes are being forwarded, like the current URI. Selected browser, current URI. Well, now it's broken. Yeah, Smurfd's like browser inception. Absolutely browser inception. That's exactly what's going on. So there are certain things that are being forwarded. And I'm trying to remember if there's like a list somewhere. No, that's just how it's freezing things. But basically, I think we want to like abstract out the methods for removing from the DOM and inserting back into the DOM for process flipping, so that the responsive design mode browser can handle it, can essentially override that, and then do the injection properly for itself. So how would that look? So you could have like how would that look? You could have something sloppy like return and remove self and parent. And what that does is it returns like browser parent. Here, let me put this inside some monospace thing. And then you set your attributes, whatnot, and then you could say parent. It'd be like browser dot remove and return self and parent. And then browser is actually the inner browser. That's one way of doing it. But now we're talking to the inner browser. And is that what we want to do? We want to talk to the inner browser? I think it is. I think we actually want to talk to the inner one whenever we're setting all the attributes. Return, remove and return self and parent. And then eventually you'll do like parent dot append child browser to put it back. And we might even want to have a special function there. Except that whenever you remove something from the DOM, in XBL at least, the binding is detached. So setting a function like to essentially like creating a custom XBL binding function won't work until it's actually in the DOM already. So we might need something of this form. And so in that way, we're going to need to document the heck out of this because it's not clear why one would need to do this. But essentially I'm saying, hey, browser that wraps another browser, remove and return self and parent. Because in the default case, in the case where we're like a normal browser window, it's just going to return itself and its parent. But in the responsive design mode case, it's going to return the inner browser and its parent. Then we set attributes on it, and then we append the child back to the parent. And we might have to tell it that we reattached it to have responsive design mode rehook itself up. I'm not entirely certain. This is all theory. I don't know if any of this is going to work. That's why I'm kind of hoping we can test it. So maybe that's the best choice right now, is to just test. Let's see if we can discard this idea right away. Let's try and test it. So really hacky. Let's see if we can get ourselves this function. So in browser.xml, we're going to create this function. Where am I going to put it? The functions start here, so I'm just going to put it here. I'm going to call it method is called remove self and return remove and return self and parent. It's really badly named. Doesn't take any parameters. And then, so what I'm writing right now is what's called XBL. This is the binding language that historically we've used and we were trying to get rid of over time in the Firefox front end. And yeah, what do I want to do here? I want to say, in the case of the browser binding here, I'm going to say remove like this dot remove, or like let parent equal this dot parent node. Is that what it was doing before? I think it's that simple, right? Parent. parent node, yeah. Parent equals this dot parent node, this dot remove, and then we return browser is this, parent node, parent node. I'll just call it parent node instead. Oh, this dot parent node. That's probably simple. Oh no, I need to get it sooner. Okay. Okay, that should do it, I think. And then we need a way for, well, first of all, now we need to call it. So we'll say let browser parent node equal a browser dot remove and return self and parent. And then parent isn't used much except for here. Say parent node. And then we can get rid of that. And then we don't need a browser.remove anymore, but we should be talking to the browser instead of a browser. So I'm just gonna be real careful here about which ones we set attributes to. And maybe we actually want to do it on all of this. Some of it's being tunneled, some of it I'm not entirely certain of yet. So let's leave it the way it is for now. So in between these 2 points, I'll just talk to browser whenever I've removed things from the DOM and put it back in the DOM. Because presumably these are the things that need to be applied only whenever a thing is not in the DOM and is about to be inserted into the DOM. Okay. So this should allow, this should be reasonably straightforward in that it, hang on. In that it should allow me to do standard process flips and everything should still continue to work as normal. The other thing we need to do is handle the responsive design mode case. So yeah, overridden methods, pass-through methods. Most message manager methods are left alone. This is the message manager tunnel. These are messages that are tunneled. Browser. We create the message manager tunnel. What is the message manager tunnel used? Replace. Oh, I see. Construct. See, in a way, it's really nice that it's so documented like this, but it also is a code smell. It means like complicated stuff is going down. From the content was swapped onto the inner browser, pull the state to the outer browser. So we might end up having to like redo all of this too. The tunnel. So what about the whole like oh, frame mode, various browsers. So I'm gonna set on the outer, I'm gonna set outer dot, I'm gonna have my function remove and return self and parent equals let parent equals inner dot parent node inner.remove return browser inner parent node. Now that's not the greatest. I'm just like overriding a method here. I don't know if that's going to work out very nicely, but what's going on here? I really want to just like do an artifact build. Let's get that going. I'm a little bit worried, to be honest. The responsive design mode it feels like a pretty, is leaky abstraction the right term? I'm not entirely certain, but it feels brittle and fragile, like this thing that proxies, it's like halfway between a full-blown proxy and only kind of a proxy. Like it proxies some of the stuff to the inner browser enough to make it work, and that worries me. What you doing? What you doing, computer? Fighting for CPU? Sounds about right. Let's close some stuff. Oh no, fighting for CPU. And this thing's not painting. This might actually be a bug. 46350. Where's 46350? This is interesting. I may have just reproduced a bug, or just horribly broken my browser in general. Yeah, I can't switch tabs now. How did I get into this state? Very interesting. Expected error occurred. Can't access its spec property. I think I just wrecked my browser. I'm gonna quit. I think whenever I was inspecting various nodes using the browser console, I've got my browser into a pretty funky state. Come on, computer. What's wrong with this build? Let's do this. Come on, I need to see this thing work. Python is consuming now something like, oh, let me pull this on screen here. 89.8% of my CPU, or of a core, presumably. I don't know what's going on here. Thankfully, it's now starting to free up a little bit. All right. I think my computer's just doing too much. OBS. Anyway, yeah, it'd be great if I could. I'm going to talk to Barrett after this video is done recording, and we'll talk a little bit about maybe distributing some of the load onto a different machine. That'd be very nice. So if this doesn't work out, I want to come up with like a backup plan for responsive design mode. I mean, how close are we to the merge? It's 1 week away, I think. Smurfy says everything below 12,000% is nothing. He's referencing the fact that Activity Monitor was reporting that I was using like 13,000% of my CPU a couple weeks back. That was fun. Where's the release calendar? I just want to get a sense of my timeline here for when I need to expect. So the next release is soft freeze on December 3rd. I've got 5 days-ish. I'm going to be traveling for some of it. So maybe I need to think less about, maybe I need to buy myself some time, essentially. Thinking, because we're right near the end of the cycle and I'm really worried about this stuff. What are you doing? 32% of my CPU. Just fighting. I have a feel it's just like resource contention. Everyone wants a piece of my CPU right now. All right. So what sorts of things could we do? Like thinking defensively. Oh, no, 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 don't open that. No, 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 no. Thinking defensively. We could well, when was this? Clears the address and local file rendering page empty. We could disable the separate activity stream content process and land a patch that backs out the RDM change. Could do that. First of all, let's see how the thing I just did, the little hacky test I did, worked. I got a feeling this is going to be, to put it mildly, a crapshoot. I don't think this is going to work out, but we'll see. So now I'm here, I'm in activity stream. So like this is using process number 47987. So if I were to go to like cbc.ca 47992, I have successfully process flipped. So now I'm going to go back to About New Tab. Now I'm back in 47987. And now I'm going to... Smurfy wants to know, explain my worry about the release of this bug. It's because people who rely on responsive design mode, I expect might attempt to open... Like, we've made a compromise with this patch, and I don't know if it was the right one. The patch that added the activity stream content process. And the compromise was, well, now you can't open responsive design mode on About New Tab without blanking out the new tab first. And that has meant that if you start from file URIs, then actually, I need to double check something just to... There's a lot on my mind right now, but first of all, let's see if this. Okay, yeah. So it won't let me do the. It won't let me go to responsive design mode from About New Tab, because it wants me to have been in a normal web process like this. Now, if I go to About New Tab, what's going to happen? I'm in some kind of like loop. That's not good. And my parent process is getting hammered. So I'm going to shut that down. I don't think that was very good what I did. I want to explain my worry. Okay, so the separate activity stream process is this experimental thing that we've turned on in Nightly only right now. And in turning it on, we've had to make some sacrifices in how responsive design mode works. But because that responsive design mode compromise is triggered by the activity stream content process, privileged content process thing, it doesn't, like, that compromise takes place even if the separate activity stream content process is off. Like, we landed a patch to have that compromise be added. So what I think we should consider is maybe turning off the activity stream content process in the last half of Nightly, because we're not going to be uplifting it to beta just yet. And then backing out the part that gave us the compromise, because any other the people who are experienced and experts of responsive design mode are either busy or the other one, Jay Ryan's, recently left Mozilla to go back to school. So I'm worried about touching this really brittle, complicated code so late in the release cycle and not having as much testing as we should. So I'd like to be a little more defensive because we're so late in the cycle. I don't know if that answers your question. So here's what I'm going to do. Actually, I'm gonna launch a Nightly from 2018. I'm going to go back to 1st of August. Because that was before the responsive, or the privileged content process was landed. So I'm going back before any of that stuff went into the tree. And I want to see if this bug is actually still there. Because if not, maybe I can get us back into that state whenever we turn off the privileged content process. And if so, that's probably the best case, because that's a tested configuration that users are using today, and I don't have to worry about like inventing new things or new things having been broken out there. And it buys me essentially another 6 weeks to come up with a solution, and gives us maybe 6 weeks of testing. So just to recap, what I need to do in order reproduce this bug is I need to browse to a local URI. In this case, it'll be, I've got this local test case file. Oops, just launched. That's good. And then open up responsive design mode for it. So here it is. Now I'm going to open up responsive design mode. Is this the icon for it? It is, okay. Okay, that works. That works. Now if I browse somewhere, I'll bet you it breaks. Yeah, we exit responsive design mode. But that was apparently a sufficient compromise. Like that was a fine compromise that people were okay with, because that's what we shipped for a long time. So I think I want to go back. I want to go back to that. So let's see if we can come up with a solution. Like, that's going to be my backstop, and then we can actually look at real solutions, but at least we'll have a backstop. So the way it does this decision making is it tests to see whether or not the current browser would cause a process flip when attempting to browse to example.com. And if so, it blanks out the page and waits for that process flip to occur. in doing that, this is all allowing responsive design mode to keep its UI open, because it all occurs before you, I think before you even open it. So maybe we can just like get rid of all of this. Like, what happens if I just get rid of all of this? If I just get rid of all of that, then I believe you are in the original state. And then if I turn off the activity stream content process, I think okay, I think I'm starting to come up with a backstop, a plan that will work. Essentially, it might be possible for us to hang on, run, to put all of that code that was in there, make it conditional upon the activity stream content process existing, so that only on nightly will we have this breakage, and then in release we won't have it. And if people on nightly are really like hurt by that bug, then they can disable the activity stream content process themselves. So let me just see whether or not, well, hold on a second. These are not the steps to reproduce. This is not what I wanted to do. I want to go to test case. Oh wait, hold on a second. Test case. And now I'm going to open up. Yeah, so this works. Now if I attempt to go somewhere, it's going to close. Oh, it's just going to flip out. Oh, because I still have my old patch applied. Shoot. Okay, hold on a sec. All of that was invalid. We're going to quit that for a sec. I'm going to shelve everything that I did with the like remove and return parent stuff. I forgot I left that in the tree, but I'm going to not shelve this change, the swap change, but we'll shelve everything else. So in Mercurial, this is how you can shelve everything except something. You exclude a particular file, and shelve is the equivalent of like git stash. So I'm stashing the changes temporarily, except for the one in swap.js. I'm going to build it, and I'm going to test it. And so, alternatively, we make the swap.js preamble stuff conditional upon the separate privileged content process pref being true, or we put it behind nightly if def. Lint complain. OBS just chugging. All right. Build. Now I am really excited about this idea of using a separate machine for encoding or capture. If somehow OBS can do that, that'd be lovely. Imagine I had the full capability of my computer right now. Just imagine. Let me play a jaunty tune. Just imagine. All right. Run. Let's not restore. Instead, I'm going to go back to this test case. I'm going to go back. I'm going to open up responsive design mode. Great. Now I'm going to browse somewhere, cbc.ca. And yeah, it causes a process flip. So we end up losing responsive design mode from before. Okay. Okay. So here's what I'm thinking. I'm going to put it all back. So just force new frame loader on next navigation to remote content. Oh, there's another case. There's another case that I'm not thinking of, which is the preloaded about new tab that is sometimes loaded. Like, I think we already make this. We make this compromise already, but if like I open up responsive design mode and then go to cbc.ca, then we do an empty. Right. What happens if I disable separate content process? Because the preloaded about new tab always gets loaded in a pre-existing one. It recycles content processes, and then whenever we browse away from it, that's when we do a process flip. Yikes. That's right. That was a memory trade-off we made. So let's make sure a preloaded about new tab exists. So one should have been opened right now. This is a preloaded one, 49377. Yeah, so it preloaded in the same content process here. And now, if I were to open up responsive design mode, we blank it out. We also lose our dev tools. That's interesting. Let me actually, I want to get more context here. We're inside swap.js. I want to look at the history of those lines of code. This was 8 months ago. For the preloaded browser loads of there's several blocks case. Blah, 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 blah. Open response to navigate to some URL with the address bar. And this was fixed in 62, which we're on 65 right now. So we've been shipping for 2 releases. Okay. And go back to the original bug. what Jay Ryan says, the existing logic for about new tab may serve as some inspiration here. I'm guessing a process flip is happening. So one approach may be to do something similar so that the content process is already in the right process when opening RDM, avoiding the flip which would break it. Because what the users are reporting is they launch Firefox, open any local file, press F12, click on the RDM, expected the file is displayed, actual page content is empty. This is from Soft Vision too. So whether or not this is an actual like what I think we want is the behavior we had before. Okay. So let's take a look at what we did for the separate content process stuff. Jay Ryan's. He added the second block. So we might be able to like and services.prefs get bool pref what's it called? Browse, then checks to see if this is true. This is badly formatted, but if these things are true, then we update remoteness. So if I understand things correctly, then with the separate content process disabled, we should now be back in the original, like what we had shipped. Must change process. Well, another thing we could look at is we could see whether or not the linked browser remote type is the privileged remote type. That'd be another way of doing it. Effectively the same thing. Maybe a little cleaner. But let's take a look. So the separate activity stream, content pro, what is it? Separate privileged. What? Where is it? There it is. It's false by default. And now if I go to like responsive design mode here, it will clear as originally. Oh, no, it doesn't clear. That's okay. But it will clear if I browse somewhere. Oh, it just goes. But this one, because this is a one that will be consumed, because it was preloaded, that one blanks out. Okay. And that's what we were doing before. And now if I go to test case and open up responsive design mode. Okay, so that's effectively what we were shipping before. And I think maybe that's what I'm gonna wanna do. That's like the simplest, smallest change. But instead of checking the pref, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna check to see whether or not the current remote type for process flip, tab will force a process flip from the away privileged content process on navigation. Here, let's get a few more. No. Process. So if must change process and browser dot and it's not force, we're not loading about blank first. Tab will I'll say tab must process flip. And we away from the privileged content process. Actually, tab must process flip away from the privileged content process. Must flip away from the privileged content process. We'll say browser if must change process and tab.linked browser.remote type equals privileged. Okay. So in that case, what we'll have is this same bug will still exist in Nightly, but whenever the pref doesn't get flipped as we go up the trains, so whenever Nightly merges to beta, the activity stream content process will not ship in beta, at least not this cycle. And then we can we'll be able to work in both states, but like the beta state is exactly what we ship on release right now, and I think that's strictly better. Okay, so I've got it off right now. So if I were to like enter response to design mode, it's happy, and I can browse away because it's gonna keep the same process. Yeah. Exit response to design mode. And it's happy. And now I'm going to open up two tabs. This one's in the preloaded one, I think. Actually, let me load up one more, and I'll do it in this one. This is the preloaded one. So this one should blank out, but it'll allow me to use it. Yeah, and then I go to like reddit.com. And then I can like view Reddit in the response design mode, so that's working as appropriate or as intended. And then over here, I'm going to do file URI. This is the original issue. I'm going to cause it to open. Yeah, okay, so that works out. Now if I reactivate the privileged content process, and restart, then we should be back in the original state, and that's okay because I will have bought us time. It will only affect nightly. So now if I go to here, this file URI, or even now, it will allow it to, like, even on nightly, the file URI thing should still work, because it's only when we browse away will it like exit responsive design mode, I think, which is what we currently ship. And then over here, this will cause it to blank out, I think. Yeah. But then I can go to like mozilla.org. Good. Okay. Pretty pleased. What? Close. Uh-oh. I should report that to our web devs. Close on this thing's not working. Maybe if I... I will go report that to the web devs. That's obnoxious. All right. Well, I think that's probably a decent backstop, and probably what we should do for now. I should make sure that the responsive design mode tests still run. And then what we have now is a blocker for allowing the separate activity stream content process to ride the trains up. We have to find a solution to the process flipping thing, but at least we've bought some time. We're not at the back half of our release cycle. I could solve that in 2019, and our users, the vast majority of them, wouldn't be impacted. Okay, so I'm happy with that. I'm going to, I think, push this to try to see, or I'm going to run the responsive design mode tests locally first, just to make sure that everything's hunky-dory. So dev tools, I say test, dev tools, client, responsive.html. Where are the tests? I'm just going to run the whole suite. And then I'm going to run it again, but I'm going to flip the pref that disables the separate activity stream content process. And if we work in both cases, then we're in good shape. All right. I think I'm going to call the episode here. Well, maybe I don't know how comprehensive these tests are. Maybe this will be fast. If this is fast, then maybe we'll run the tests and then call it a day. Maybe we can even get the patches posted and then call it a day. Let's see how long it takes to run these tests. Just OBS is chugging. Chuggaroo.
It's me, Mario!
I'm probably not helping by making my computer play sound effects, but it's entertaining for me.
Hey, what happened? What happened? I can't do my work. I don't think so.
You all?
Oh, these are taking too long. I mean, I'm really, really happy that we have so much test coverage on this stuff. That's great. But with OBS running, this is just going to take forever. Maybe I should just push it to automation. I don't know. But I will decide outside of the episode. Thank you so much for watching episode 159 of The Joy of Coding. I hope that was useful. I hope that was entertaining. Let me know what you thought. There is a link in the agenda for how you can rate the episode. Do let me know. I'm happy to hear all of your feedback, and I do want to hear it. Help me make this stream better. So yes, thank you for watching episode 159. Hey, maybe next time. I should let you know. I'm going to be on traveling next week, so there's no episode next week. But hopefully there will be an episode after that. There should be. I've got one scheduled, so fingers crossed. So I won't see you next week, but then the week after that, if all goes well, I will see you for episode 160. And maybe even by then, I'll have figured out this like separate machine encoding thing, and my computer will be at full speed. That'd be nice. All right. Thank you very much. Take care. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
The joy of coding.
See ya.